Hi, and welcome back to our series walking through the production process for Nightrun from a technical perspective. Nightrun is out for free on Epic Games on October 23rd. Please go download it. Thank you very much. I'm Matt Schell, and I'm here with Josh Vaughan, who's the lead developer here at Thousand Ant. And in this video, we're going to talk about the development of the backend for the game, specifically the online high-scoring system. And so we can see some of that here on the screen. So we've got each run has a seed, right? There are 2048 of them. So each one of those has its own high score table. Right now we've got our kind of dummy data in there because we've just recently deleted the high score tables getting ready for release. And then there's a daily run as well, which has daily high scores. And there's the possibility that if you get into the top, is it 50? Top 50 all-time high scores, there's a special high score table for that that shows at the end of the run. And so, I mean, in terms of the creative goals for the scoring, because the game is so minimalistic in terms of mechanics, because it's just this kind of endless runner style format, I wanted to give people some wider sense of goals, and also having it be an online high score table, I think gives it a fun competitive layer where you can, like one of the things we see, we can't see it now because we just deleted the scores, but seed one becomes a kind of attractor for people. Everybody wants to get a high score on seed one, a certain kind of like funny numbers. People try to get high scores on those.
Any meme numbers.
Any meme numbers, people are trying to compete for high scores. So there's an interesting kind of sense of a little bit of like territory that people are competing for. And it obviously just makes the game feel more alive, right? I think one of the key weaknesses of the design that we kind of realized as we got further into production is that it is a very, well, what we call kind of like a dead world, right? In the sense that the player does not have a lot of agency to affect or change the state of the world, right? That's one of the things that in a like a combat-based game is one of the key things that players can do. They kill the enemy, now the enemy is dead. The player knows, I'm here, I did something, I changed the world, right? Whereas Nightrun really doesn't have that. So the high score table wasn't conceived to respond to that, but it is one way that people can feel like, okay, I did something, I left a mark, other people can see it, and so gives the players more of a feeling of agency in the world.
Yeah, one of the important things about it is just that it is one of the places where you can make a mark, and then, because we're an NFT game and there's a lot of different kind of affordances that we wanted to have as far as what information is actually getting stored. One of the big things that we did is we basically did a completely bespoke backend. Yeah. We're not using Steam's backend. We're not using, Epic Games. We're basically sending out the most de-identified information possible. It's literally just the username that you put on it. Yeah. And whatever scores you do, and it's not.
Yeah, it's not tied to your Steam ID or your Epic ID or
collated or correlated with anything else. It's really
no cookies, no tracking, no spying.
Yeah, we're literally here just to give you a fun little world to romp around in. We're not running weird A/B data tests on you. We're not trying to hack your brain. We're not trying to make you buy stuff. Yeah. And so, a lot. This is like the good thing about our funding model is we got the money to build the game up front. We're not trying to like rake people over the coals for more cash. We're not a we're not a regular corporation. It's like, oh crap, this quarter's looking a little weak. Well, what can we do to make everybody pay us 10 times as much money this quarter? Yeah. And it's good. I think from it does mean that there's kind of a finite stopping point of when we have to just kind of wrap this up and move on to the next thing. But it's also kind of clean in an old school way, Yeah. Video games just kind of got finished. The good thing about this is, since we've always been really open to community response, I think there's room for people to come in and say, what would be great if we could do this, this, and this. And then we can find some like specific ways to kind of go about it. The game doesn't have to just stop here per se.
For sure.
But we can really just gauge the response and then decide what moves we can make next. Yeah. And we can do it in a way that again, like we're not abusing people's personal information. We don't need personally identifying information for any of that. We're doing this in a really kind of like clean, very sane way. And honestly, it's one of the things I feel the best about in the development of this is that it's not going down any of those tropes. There's no pay to win. There's no insanity, no play to earn, none of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that's something, we've taken a certain amount of heat for being an quote unquote NFT game, even though the game has no blockchain anything in it, actually. But it was funded through an NFT sale. But one of the things that enabled is that the game is completely free and doesn't have microtransactions, right? Which is funny. I find difficult to get across to people because I'm like, oh, it's a free game. And they're like, yeah, we know about free games. We know what you guys do with free games. We're like, no. It's actually a free game. Like, it's already been paid for by our NFT collectors. Not to say that we wouldn't at some point maybe do some kind of monetization like you alluded to build out more features. From my perspective, kind of the jury's out on that to see what the response is from the first group of players, which we're going to be seeing pretty soon, which I'm excited about. So not to close the door on any future kind of potential funding models, but I'm definitely happy that we did not have to structure this like, for example, a traditional mobile game or the Fortnites and so on of the world with the kind of, cosmetic heavy approach. It's cool to be able to make something that's actually free and that we still were able to fund the development of.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely proud of what we put together. And, so we have a backend system.
Yeah.
It's really, really unencumbered. It's just the scores. It's just kind of a SQL table living on the web. It spits out score data. We've got a table to store people's seed data. The interactions for that are just kind of governed through our nightrun.art website.
Yeah.
People that hold the token can connect. They can alter the things for their seed. Yeah. And, I think with so many companies trying to like leverage data and squeeze as much information as they can out of users, I feel good that we're actually just taking a completely opposite tack. We're giving people exactly what they need to form a competitive environment, to kind of chase high scores, to have some fun, to kind of create some meta games within the game, and to go after stuff. But we're doing it in a way that actually like just wipes out all the extra crap.
Yeah. You don't have to sign up with your email. You don't have to do any of those things. No, I for me that feels really cool, and I think that honestly, one of the things we've talked about in another video, you mentioned the fact that we're not using Steam's backend, which could have really been a problem for us because we ended up, because of the AI generated artwork in the game, we ended up getting kicked off Steam or rejected from Steam, which I made a video about before, and some of you may have seen. But, we worked, I would say the backend itself was a solid month of development, something like that. Which was you basically by yourself doing it. And if we had to pivot or redo that or whatever, that would have been a real significant cost. So that's now something that we own and control, and nobody is going to change their policies or kick us off or tell us, oh, no, because you're an NFT game or you're an AI game or whatever, you're not allowed to use our backend, so that actually proved to be a good decision.
Yeah, and I think we're still on Epic Games because they, it's a place where we can kind of exist in a marketplace where we have some visibility. I felt like if we were just a bespoke website where people were downloading this, and it's always a kind of question of attention and searchability.
Yeah.
And so we're still on Epic because it's a place where people can see us. We were really too big to be an itch game.
Yeah, and this is an interesting point actually. There is this kind of hole in the market because we're like a 6-7 gigabyte download. We just couldn't be on itch. They have a 4 gigabyte limit. We initially targeted Steam, then we got rejected from Steam because of the AI thing, because of the use of AI generated imagery. And people were saying, oh, just, after I published that video being like, we got rejected, people were like, oh, just take it out. But it was like, well, actually, this was really core to our thing. Both, for me, kind of as an artwork, but then also because the way that we financially funded the game was through selling these artworks. And So I felt like that was really unfair to our collectors to be like, well, you paid for this, now we're taking out the thing that you bought. That just was a kind of a non-option there. I'm definitely appreciative that Epic has taken this more open-ended policy of allowing games that have crypto elements, allowing games that use AI in their production pipeline. That has turned out to be, really important for us. And an interesting detail for folks who are considering releasing on Epic, we actually have seen better wishlist numbers there than we were seeing on Steam, which I think is probably a small fish in a smaller pond, as opposed to small fish in the biggest pond being Steam thing, that I think we're getting some organic traffic from Epic itself, which is cool.
Yeah. No, it's definitely good to have that. Again, I feel like the decisions we were able to make with how to structure stuff meant that even as we kind of like did get stuck bouncing around from platform to platform and trying to find our way, I always knew that like tracking our own data, controlling that stuff for the player, keeping it isolated, not really, just basically setting it up in a way that does kind of put them first and sort of protects their interest in their data, and they can just do whatever they want with it. They can delete it, they can get rid of it. It's really easy to just go like, okay, don't need this anymore. And not really kind of surrender that to any platform, really, in a way that is, could be in any way construed as exploitative, I think was kind of very central to just DeFi and Web3 in general. And just a good affordance for people that do want to play anonymous but do want to be kind of social within that context. So
no, that's a good point. There is a and this is something a lot of game developers won't be familiar with, but within the Web3 NFT scene, there's this big culture of anonymity, and people have a kind of an anonymous persona that they are continuous with and that has its own kind of reputation, but that they don't post their face or their name or their email or whatever. So that would have been a kind of a limiting factor for those types of players if we had said, okay, sign in with your Google account, or sign in with your email, or just kind of culturally, that would have been a little bit of a point of friction, which I think, generally speaking, there's pluses and minuses to anonymity, but in the context of a game, I think there's no reason to force people to identify with their real world identity, and pushing people into that, I think, is usually not particularly in their interest.
I think the other good thing about Nightrun is within its kind of limited framework and context, there's not a lot of surface area for griefing, abuse.
Right. Important.
And so we were kind of like the right product in terms of like what we were from a design standpoint. The worst thing that people could possibly do is just a few dumb things. And generally speaking, I've noticed that we have a really great base of players that are generally, even with all the kind of affordances of anonymity, they're not using it as a platform to say stupid shit.
Yeah.
They're not just doing
so far. Once we open to the public, there's probably going to be more stupid stuff going on.
Well, definitely, there will always be a time and a place for more stupid stuff. This is games. But again, the surface area for grief, the amount of anonymity that people have, just kind of keeps a lot of that stuff to a minimum in some respects. It's kind of like, I think it's almost like if you're halfway there or halfway not, that's really being in the middle of the road and getting hit by all the traffic. It's either be anonymous or don't.
No, I agree. And I think just to kind of return to the architecture of the backend, right? There's basically two main things that it handles, right? One is the score table that we talked about, and then the second is the token configurator, right? Which, just as a refresher, basically if you own, let's say you own seed number 6, right, which is a Nightrun NFT token, and you can go find this on an NFT marketplace like OpenSea or whatever, then you're able to go, or anybody can enter this screen, but only people who own that token can actually authenticate and save the data. But let's say we could go in and say, okay, no, I don't want to show CryptoPunks. I want to show Heaven Computer, and I want to show Crash Archipelago, and I want to show Idea Machine, right? You can go through, pick the art collections, not the individual artworks, but it's going to randomly select from these collections. You can choose what music plays. Let's pick one of my songs. And then you can choose the color palette, right? Which is probably like the biggest, most visible change that you can make to the world, right? So let's say we choose this lifter palette. Then once you've done all that, you can choose copy seed string. This is now copied to your clipboard. And then you can go to the nightrun.art website, connect with your crypto wallet, paste in this string, which now actually that we're on Epic, we actually could have people connecting their wallets directly to the game. But because we were initially planning to release on Steam, this was part of our way of saying, okay, we're totally siloing off any of the crypto functionality, that there's no, this is the point of exit from the app to then go into crypto land, right, is just this string of JSON coming out of this configurator interface that then you go and connect your wallet to the website, paste it in, and submit it to our database. So that was kind of like a decision that we made based on the fact that Steam had this ban on NFT games. We didn't know about the ban on AI art, which is actually what ended up getting us rejected. Yeah, it was definitely a double whammy. But I think even still, because of, and this is kind of getting into the weeds of crypto, but connecting your wallet to things is always a security risk, and generally speaking, people tend to feel more comfortable connecting to websites than to like some random game application that could maybe be doing things to your wallet that you don't want or know about. And so that was also like a part of that decision, right? Was like, this is a user behavior that crypto users are comfortable with. They're used to going to a website, connecting their wallet, and then signing transactions. Or in this case, you don't even need to sign a transaction. You just need to connect, and it verifies that you have those NFTs in your wallet. And then the backend will either accept or reject the changes that you make based on that.
At every point in time, again, attack vectors are about surface area, and I've tried to keep the total surface area of what we look at, what we care about, as minimal as possible, and to just kind of keep us out of it, so that we can, so that people can really work with this comfortably and never have any weird red flags going off.
Or like just trust us kind of things. Yeah.
If there's one thing we've learned, just trust us is the three deadliest words in this space, because that just means run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that so basically those are the kind of two components of the back end, right? Where we're storing the score data, which is automatically published from the game client. And then we also have this second backend database that is written to from the website, but read from the game client, right? And so that when you make these changes, when somebody goes and plays the game, it will update, and you'll see now, the seed number 6 that you made the changes to will now reflect those changes in the game world, right? And this is kind of part of creating this kind of massively single player experience, right? Where there are external editable factors, and those then populate for all the players. And also importantly for me, coming from the design perspective, I didn't want people to have to think about any of the complexity or feel pressured to buy anything or worry about any kind of crypto stuff as players. I just wanted players to be able to play and to basically obfuscate a lot of that cognitive load that comes with all the weirdness of crypto, and just make it a game experience that people could just play, but then have these ways for people who do want to engage with the crypto side of it to interact and have that kind of populate out into the world, kind of inspired by the cosmetic-like approach of things like Fortnite or Dota 2, right, where we're making cosmetic changes, in this case not to a character's skin, but to the actual background of the level and to the world, which I think is interesting. And honestly, as a real experiment, we'll see if that is something that people find cool or want to do or whatever. That's sort of TBD, because we're about to release, so we'll find out. So there's a little kind of look behind the curtain of how we took the approach to the back end for the game. In the next video, we're going to talk about just some of the kind of production process, some of the tooling that we used, how we approached it and organized ourselves for it. We'll do that in the next and last segment of this talk. Thanks so much for watching. Drop a comment for the algorithm and a like on the video if you enjoyed it. And please consider subscribing if you're not already. And we will see you in the next segment. And cut.